I overheard a plot to frame my colleague for racism. After exposing a visa issue, they got fired. Justice served. I am uncertain whether this qualifies as professional revenge, so I will let you all make that determination. If it does not, please inform me and I will relocate it. I apologize in advance for the length of this narrative, but the context is important. Back in the early 2010s, I began my employment with a large internet-based company in the United Kingdom. The organization was in the process of establishing a new office with a new division in London. When I joined, there were 2 team leaders and the office manager. The 2 teams consisted of the content team and the search engine optimization team. I was hired to be the lead of the development team, which focused on web development. During my interview for the position, both the office manager and the lead of the SEO team were conducting the interview. As is customary in interviews, when they inquired whether certain tasks could be accomplished, I would respond with, "Yes, certainly," or suggest, "You would achieve better results by doing X, Y, or Z." Consequently, I received the job offer, and during my first year, there was a tremendous amount to accomplish. In addition to assembling a team, I also had a portfolio of websites that required redevelopment and redesign. It was at this juncture that some warning signs began to emerge. The SEO team lead, we will refer to him as Andy, would approach me, insisting that I needed to execute tasks according to his preferences. I consistently pushed back, explaining my reasoning for my approach. Andy would become furious and complain to the office manager about me. When the office manager would inquire about the situation, I would describe what had transpired and why I had declined. And the office manager would set the matter aside because, ultimately, I possessed more experience in web development than Andy did. This scenario occurred multiple times during my first year, leading me to realize that Andy's anger stemmed from his expectation that I would always acquiesce to his demands. Sorry, buddy, that is not my character. Now that we have the background, let us delve into what led to the revenge. My team and I had been diligently working to complete 2 new websites, and I was scheduled to present them to the board before they went live. The company's head office was located in a different part of the country, and I had to depart from our London office around lunchtime. I arrived at the hotel across from the head office at approximately 4 p.m. and immediately began using my laptop to go through the websites and conduct some tests. I was checking functionality and ensuring the visual aspects were correct, among other tasks. Then, a significant problem arose. We discovered a major bug that severely affected the functionality of the website. At this point, I want to introduce the protagonist of our tale, Johnny, not his real name, but still relevant, who was my senior developer. Johnny and I worked through the night, me in the hotel room and him at the London office. We finally resolved the bug around 7 a.m. the next day. My meeting with the board was set for 10 a.m., so after showering and eating, I made my way to the office, starting my day with 0 hours of sleep. Upon entering the meeting, the CEO immediately asked if I was all right. I had met him a few times, and he was genuinely a nice person. I explained that we had encountered an issue with the websites the previous day, and that Johnny and I had worked through the night to rectify it before the meeting. To summarize, everyone was quite impressed and loved the new sites. At the conclusion of the meeting, the CEO called me aside to thank me for my efforts and advised me to return home to rest. It was about a 3-hour train ride back to London, followed by another hour home. I expressed my gratitude and proceeded on my way. After that, I took my team out for a well-deserved lunch to express my appreciation. Subsequently, the office manager organized a night out for the entire office to celebrate the following Friday. We began at an upscale bar, not my usual preference, as I favor more affordable venues, and then everyone transitioned to a small club. I attended the club for a while, but then left early to catch a train home. I bid everyone farewell and headed back. Upon returning to the office on Monday, I sensed something unusual was occurring. I spoke with Emma, not her real name, the lead of the content team. She was unaware of the situation, but there were individuals from the head office, HR, and others present. A few minutes later, all team leaders were summoned to a meeting. We were crammed into a small meeting room with the office manager, 2 members of the HR team from the head office, and the 3 team leaders, including myself. HR explained that a complaint had been lodged against Johnny. A member of the SEO team, we will refer to him as Mark, had contacted Andy on Friday, alleging that Johnny had made racist comments while everyone was out at the club. Both Emma and I were taken aback. This behavior was uncharacteristic of Johnny. As a side note, I feel compelled to clarify the ethnic backgrounds of the individuals involved for context and not as an affront. Johnny, Emma, and I are white British. Andy is of African descent, born in Britain, I believe, while Mark is of Indian descent, to my knowledge. Thus, the entire day was consumed by HR conducting interviews with others who were present that night, and we reconvened towards the end of the day. The findings from the interviews revealed that no one had heard anything resembling what Mark was alleging. Therefore, it became a case of Mark's word against Johnny's, which was unacceptable to Andy. He insisted that Johnny should be terminated, asserting, "We cannot have someone like that in the office." Emma and I exchanged glances and found it peculiar that he was so adamant about firing Johnny without any supporting evidence. Both the office manager and HR concurred, so Johnny received a warning and was advised to be cautious about how his words might be misinterpreted in the future. Life returned to normal in the office until approximately 2 months later, when the news surrounding the incident circulated among the small office, about 12 people. One afternoon, a member of the content team pulled me aside, stating that he had overheard Andy and Mark talking and believed I should be informed. We moved into one of the meeting rooms where he detailed everything. What I heard made my blood boil, and I felt like if I were in a cartoon, steam would have been billowing from my ears. He revealed that the racism allegation was fabricated, a scheme that Andy concocted to undermine my team because I had refused to capitulate to his demands. He and Mark were on a call outside the club. Andy was not present that night, and that is when he overheard their conversation. It later emerged that their plan was to falsely accuse Johnny, aiming to get him dismissed, which would then lead to Andy claiming that I was unfit to manage a team if I allowed such behavior under my supervision. My first question was why he hadn't mentioned this to HR during the interviews. He claimed he did, but it was his word against both Andy and Mark's. I thanked him and continued with my tasks. I was furious. There was no way I would let this slide, but I knew I needed to have everything organized beforehand. I refrained from informing Johnny about what I had learned and asked the person who shared the information to keep quiet for the time being. I did not want Johnny to become upset and take action that could jeopardize his job or hinder my potential retaliation. Therefore, I kept a close watch. I monitored everything the SEO team did and did not do. Then, an unexpected opportunity presented itself, as though angels had descended to deliver me a winning lottery ticket. The building we occupied was 3 stories tall, featuring a main stairwell with a door on each floor leading to the offices. The stairwell also led to an exit door that opened to the street. At that time, I was an occasional smoker and often stepped outside to take breaks from the screen when facing difficulties with my tasks. As I exited the office door and stepped into the stairwell, who did I encounter but Mark? He went pale upon spotting me while still on the phone. Mid-conversation with the person on the other end, he had no choice but to continue the discussion as I walked past. I overheard him, and based on his words, I discerned that he was speaking with a school or something similar, sounding as though he was inquiring about application procedures and visas. That struck me as a peculiar conversation, and I sensed something was amiss. My suspicions were piqued, but I had no concrete evidence yet. A few days later, I was heading back to the head office, where we had a new office manager who primarily worked at that location. After dropping off my belongings at the hotel, I proceeded to the office. I approached his desk and requested a brief discussion. I recounted what I had overheard Mark discussing on the phone and suggested that the company might want to investigate his visa status. A week passed without any apparent developments, then BAM. Mark ceased coming to the office. A few days later, I learned from another member of the SEO team what had transpired. Mark was terminated immediately due to no longer possessing a valid visa to work in the UK. The company did not wish to get involved in sponsoring a new visa for him. The reasoning was unclear to me. I began asking questions around the office during casual conversations and discovered that Mark originated from Dubai and was in the UK on his wife's student visa. I am uncertain how that arrangement works, but it was legitimate. I also learned that his wife's program had concluded, leaving them with a limited time frame to obtain a new visa. That is when everything fell into place. Now, London, and other places, has its share of shady individuals who establish fraudulent colleges that enroll people to help them acquire visas to live and work in the UK. At some point before or after, I had seen a program about this, revealing that these setups were often in cramped offices where one couldn't even swing a cat, let alone be considered a college. These operations served as postal addresses for the college, and they charged a course fee for enrollment, enabling individuals to apply for a student visa. What Mark aimed to do was get enrolled in one of these fake colleges to remain in the UK and continue working. A few weeks later, I learned that Mark and his wife had to leave the UK and return to Dubai due to his inability to secure funds for his new college course. Goodbye, Mark. Upon hearing that Mark had been let go, I pulled Johnny aside and updated him on the entire situation. He was astounded, unable to comprehend that they would resort to such tactics. I apologized to him, feeling responsible for the targeting he had endured as a consequence of Andy's schemes against me. He refused to accept my apology, insisting that I had gone above and beyond in defending him. In response, I made it unmistakably clear to Andy that I was aware of what he and Mark had done. I would not forget it, and that he should be cautious. I ensured we were out of earshot of anyone else. Approximately 2 months later, Andy submitted his resignation and left the company, never to be seen or heard from again. I have shared this story with various individuals over the years, and I have been asked numerous times if I feel guilty about my actions. My response remains constant. I feel guilty that Johnny was wrongfully accused and targeted. I do not feel guilty about what I did to Mark. You do not mess with my friends, family, or team. Story 2. I jogged Dave's route in under 3 hours. He took 4.5. He flaunted a finger, but 2 months later, he got fired for slacking. Edit summary at the end, with additional remarks. Background: sit back and enjoy a tale of some retribution I executed at the United States Postal Service during the 1990s that cost a bullying full-time carrier his union job. In the summer of 1991, I secured a temporary position as a casual carrier for the USPs. They often hired summer workers to fill in for full-time carriers who typically took their vacations during this period. The USPs enforced rules requiring that items be delivered within specific timeframes. Employees could face termination if they took too long to complete their tasks. Carriers were both openly and covertly monitored and timed on various duties, and we utilized the first computerized timing system I had ever seen. Supervisors would covertly track us several times a year to ensure we maintained productivity while outside the post office. The post office itself even featured hidden corridors, passive sound monitoring systems, and concealed raised viewing areas that allowed supervisors to observe the sorting floor without being seen. Cameras and microphones were quite costly back then, so they relied on clever architecture and the vigilance of postal inspectors. We were expected to clock in and out of tasks to track our productivity down to the second. Carriers making deliveries were expected to work quickly, and the best routes were assigned to the fastest workers. Those who lagged behind were relentlessly pressured to speed up and faced disciplinary actions for their slowness. The phrase, "going postal," was not merely a cliché in this environment. It reflected serious workplace stress, as some individuals would resort to extreme measures against their supervisors. I've heard conditions have worsened since the advent of GPS. Before the internet, an enormous volume of mail was circulated across the country every day. The quantities were astounding compared to today's standards. As a financially struggling college student back for the summer, I was eager to work any hours available, which made me popular with my supervisors. I also developed a friendly rapport with most full-time carriers because I was diligent and did not disturb the status quo, along with other reasons that will become clear. Being a rather tall individual, 6 feet 5 inches or approximately 195 centimeters, weighing around 210 pounds back then, I was capable of handling significant physical loads, which pleased management. Additionally, I was in my early 20s with long legs, allowing me to move quickly while carrying considerable weight. Sorting mail during that time was labor-intensive and required a considerable amount of time to master. I had a regular route to deliver in the afternoons that was organized by a full-time carrier. Typically, I completed miscellaneous delivery tasks in the mornings, assisted in moving heavy items, and handled special deliveries. I would also make deliveries for full-time carriers who were on vacation or whose T6 was absent. A side note, mail delivery occurs 6 times a week, but full-time carriers only work 5 days a week. The T6 is a full-time carrier who covers the 6th day for 5 routes. This arrangement ensured that everyone worked only 5 days weekly. During that time, many retail catalogs were mailed to residences. A substantial number of them were significantly larger than today's magazines. We also delivered magazines, advertisements, packages, and samples. Numerous companies sent out free samples of products like laundry detergents, shampoos, and other liquids to be distributed to every home on the route. These items were a major nuisance for carriers because they were bulky and heavy. This slowed deliveries and proved physically demanding. Typically, carriers would divide the cumbersome items over the week for delivery. On to the retribution. I was assigned to do the T6 work for Dave, name altered, for several months. Dave was a frustrating colleague. Imagine a failed physical education teacher in his 40s. He had a poor mustache, stood about 5 feet 7 inches tall, wore imitation sunglasses reminiscent of Magnum PI, and had strong opinions about everything. Once Dave learned I was his T6, he decided to leave all the heavy mail for me. So once a week, I was faced with the entire week's worth of heavy deliveries from this individual's route. When I confronted him about it, he merely laughed and stated there was nothing I could do. Though the other full-time carriers were not fans of Dave, I was just a temp, and he had a permanent position, which meant I was encouraged to accept the situation. I raised my concerns with our supervisor and escalated the issue to our postmaster, but I was told that he was full-time and I was a temporary worker, so I had to cope. If the mail needed to be delivered that day to meet deadlines, I had to make it happen. The postmaster's exact words were, "Just deliver every piece of mail for the route as quickly as you can, and don't worry about how long it takes or anything else. You're making significant overtime on this route." They did speak with Dave, and the most outrageous behaviors stopped, but I was still left with the bulk of the challenging work on his route. As I mentioned earlier, everyone was consistently monitored and timed. In my first week, some kind-hearted colleagues took me aside to inform me that I should not move quickly when delivering routes for full-time carriers, as it could reflect poorly on them and cause trouble. As a temporary worker, I was expected to take longer than the full-time carriers for several reasons. 1. My position was temporary, and the USPs did not closely track temps. 2. I had no prior experience, so everything should naturally take me longer. 3. This was a union setting, and the full-time carriers would not appreciate being blamed for issues resulting from my mistakes. And 4. The majority of these individuals were great, and I wanted to be a supportive team member. Therefore, I was discouraged from moving quickly and making the full-time carriers appear inadequate. A side note, I fully support unions and labor movements, so this is not intended to undermine them, but the context is pertinent. I decided to sabotage Dave's career since he was such a bullying figure. I requested 2 additional mail carrier bags. These are the over-the-shoulder satchels commonly seen. When asked why, I specifically stated it was to help carry the heavy items on Dave's route without frequently returning to my vehicle to reload. The postmaster personally granted approval for this request. After performing Dave's route 1 to 3 times weekly, he often called in sick as well. For several weeks, I became very familiar with it and managed the heavy deliveries efficiently. Once I felt confident with the route, I began running it. I would load 3 mail bags for each section of the route and jog or run for its entirety. While it took Dave approximately 4.5 hours to walk this route each day, I consistently completed it in 3 hours or less, regardless of the weather. This held true even with magazines, samples, and packages waiting for delivery. No one truly noticed that I was returning so quickly and clocking back out of delivering his route when I was only doing it a few days a week. I would return, tackle additional work, and complete it. The excitement began when Dave took a 2-week vacation, and I managed his route 6 days a week. Since I executed the duties properly, there was never a backlog of heavy items accumulating on me once a week, making it even easier to jog or run his route. I relied on just one mailbag, and fast walking or jogging was sufficient to finish quickly. I frequently completed it in under 3 hours, never taking more than about 3.5 hours, with my personal best being below 2.5 hours. After the first week, my supervisor and the postmaster pulled me aside. They inquired about my timekeeping practices, and I confirmed I was following the protocols correctly. I would clock into the route at departure, maintain the necessary logs, and clock back in upon my return. The postmaster then asked me about Dave's route. I feigned ignorance. He recalled that I had complained about the mail volume weeks prior, stating that I used to require 6, 7, or more hours to deliver it. I explained that by distributing the heavy items throughout the week, I had greatly improved the situation. He questioned whether I genuinely delivered all the mail, or if I was concealing or discarding items, a serious accusation, if true. I felt greatly insulted and insisted that I delivered every item of mail on the route, every day. Then I delivered the final blow. I expressed my confusion as to why this route was allocated 4.5 hours for delivery when it was evident that it could be completed much more swiftly. I pointed out that it consisted of densely populated multi-family housing, meaning less distance to cover. I also mentioned that many residents on the route seemed surprised that I wasn't seeking refreshments or taking a moment to chat like Dave always did, which was entirely fabricated. I spoke in a naive, innocent tone, as though I genuinely wanted to benefit the USPs. I assured the postmaster that I was delivering all the mail promptly and not concerning myself with anything else. I jogged Dave's route again for the following 6 days and consistently completed it in significantly less time than he did. Unbeknownst to Dave, he returned from vacation to confront me on his first day back, inquiring how I enjoyed doing all the labor while he was away. I replied that I had learned a valuable lesson about treating coworkers with respect. He merely chuckled at my response and returned to sorting mail. A few minutes later, he approached again to say he had a souvenir for me, then he displayed his middle finger. Classic Dave. That was my final week at the USPs, and I returned to college. I maintained contact with some friends I made there, and one of them gladly informed me that Dave was terminated approximately 2 months after my departure. Due to the significant discrepancy in delivery times between us, the higher authorities audited his route and discovered that he was indeed slacking off, taking unauthorized breaks, and allegedly engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a woman on his route all while on duty. Meanwhile, I was in excellent physical shape from all that running, with pockets full of cash for that semester. His regular T6 ended up with the bulk of the heavy items dumped on her, so she avoided any repercussions regarding delivery times since she was overwhelmed with heavy mail on her designated day. She ultimately bid for and secured the route full-time when Dave was let go. I have more stories about my memorable summer at the USPs, but bringing down Dave remains one of the highlights. Edit summary worked at the USPs for a summer, and a colleague who enjoyed bullying temporary workers got fired after I made it seem like he was not performing his job properly, and it turned out he truly wasn't doing his job right. Thank you for all the comments and awards. I didn't anticipate that a 30-year-old story about a summer job would resonate so much. For those suggesting that I could have managed the situation differently, you are correct. However, this is pro-revenge, not followed the rulebook. Additionally, Dave was difficult with all the temporary workers, not just me. He just selected me as his special target that summer, and I chose not to tolerate it. Story 3. For my birthday, I planned a themed dress code. My brother's girlfriend showed up in white anyway, causing chaos and demands for family photos. Each year, for my birthday celebration, I always establish a very particular dress code to ensure captivating photographs. My family typically selects a photo from this gathering for our Christmas card. For this year, I expressed my desire for my guests to wear black, my close friends and family to don white, while I plan to wear red. To provide context, I have 3 brothers. Naturally, I invited all of my brothers along with their wives and girlfriends to the event. My eldest brother has been married to his wife for nearly 5 years, and they share 2 children. Although I am not close to my sister-in-law because she and my brother live several hours away and I haven't spent much time with her, she has always been very kind and is undeniably part of the family since she is married to my brother. Therefore, even though we are not particularly close, it was obvious she would be wearing white. My other brother is not married, but is bringing his new girlfriend, whom we will refer to as Anna. She and I were roommates in college, and she is one of my closest friends, so I was incredibly excited when she and my brother started dating because I looked forward to the possibility of having her as a sister. My youngest brother has been in a relationship with a girl for approximately 3 years. His girlfriend, let's call her Sarah, did not anticipate wearing white until she discovered Anna would be wearing it. Sarah confronted me and began yelling at me, furious that Anna was wearing white, especially since she had only been involved with my brother for a few months, while Sarah has been dating my other brother for several years. I calmly explained to Sarah that I understood why she was upset, but Anna was not going to be part of the family photo that would ultimately appear on our Christmas card. She was simply wearing white as one of my closest friends. Sarah remained upset and insisted that she should wear white, despite my explanation. My brother angrily contacted me and informed me that he and Sarah would not attend the event unless Sarah wore white. I dismissed it because I did not think it was a significant issue and chose to disregard my brother's requests, as I was genuinely becoming annoyed at this point. It is my party, and I should be able to make the choices, right? On the day of the celebration, Sarah arrived wearing white and insisted on being included in the family photos destined for the Christmas card. My parents are quite traditional and informed her that she would not be featured on the Christmas card until she was engaged to my brother. Sarah had a meltdown at the party and started crying after speaking with me, portraying it as though I had bullied her in some manner. In hindsight, I feel I overreacted regarding the color white and should have allowed her to wear it since I honestly do not care that much, but I still believe it was inconsiderate of her to arrive in white regardless. Am I the one in the wrong? Update hello, I am back with an update, and I am finding it challenging to process everything that has occurred. I recognize that I made mistakes in the past, and I sincerely attempted to rectify the situation. Sarah felt alienated from the family photo, and to be truthful, I did not manage her feelings appropriately. I was frustrated, but after reflecting and considering your comments, I realized that I had not been as considerate of her feelings as I could have been. I felt that I needed to apologize, so I called Sarah. I told her that I was genuinely sorry for causing her to feel excluded. I clarified that I never intended to hurt her or make her feel unwelcome, and that I should have communicated more effectively. I truly wanted to mend things because I did not want ongoing tension between us. I told her that if I ever made her feel that way again, she should come directly to me, and I would do my best to rectify it. She appeared to accept my apology. She mentioned that she understood my perspective and appreciated my effort to reach out. She even apologized for her reaction. It felt incredibly relieving. I thought perhaps this could be the beginning of rebuilding a healthier relationship. Afterward, I desired to show her that I was not just speaking to create peace, but that I was truly trying to include her. Therefore, I took a suggestion from one of the comments and booked a family photo shoot with the photographer we have previously used, inviting Sarah to join us. I expressed my enthusiasm for her to be part of the pictures because I wanted her to feel accepted and included as part of the family. I believed this would be a lovely gesture, demonstrating that I was serious about improving our connection. Sarah seemed appreciative of the invitation. She expressed gratitude and looked forward to being included. I thought, great, we are moving past this. I genuinely felt like I was making the right decision, alleviating the tension and attempting to mend the differences between us. However, one of my friends pointed out that Sarah posted something on her story indicating that some individuals were trying to keep her away, which I initially overlooked because it could have referred to anyone. Then, she made another post discussing how she had to meet an obligation for her significant other's family due to their request, and that she couldn't back out, clearly alluding to the photo shoot. She even commented on one of Anna's posts from the party, stating that Anna was fortunate to have things easy. Now, my family takes a vacation every year in the spring, and Sarah has accompanied us for the past few years. My parents cover her costs equivalent to what they provide for my other siblings, my sister-in-law, and my nieces and nephews. I recently discovered from my father that she contacted my mother and insisted that she would only go on the vacation if I was not there and demanded to be seated in business class. Typically, everyone is seated in business class because, although our parents purchase the tickets, the rest of us cover the upgrade. My parents pay for business class tickets only for themselves. My mother informed her that she and my brother could sit in business class if she paid for the upgrade like the rest of us do. My mother also clarified that, while she understood Sarah harbored issues with me, as my parents were paying for the trip, they would ultimately decide who would join. Now, she is posting more complaints on her story about feeling unappreciated and claiming she is treated unfairly. I acknowledge that I hurt her, and I realize it will require more than a phone call and a photo shoot to mend things, but I was ready to do that. I wish she had approached me instead of creating all this drama. I am quite astonished that she managed to stir up such a situation in a matter of hours from the conclusion of the party to my call and apology, to her taking these actions. I find her behavior to be unjust, particularly her attitude towards Anna, who has done nothing to her. Am I continuing to act wrongly because it is clear I am oblivious to when I may be being callous, or is this genuinely her fault this time? I understand she requires time to heal, but I believe her reactions are not appropriate. Update. I reached out to my brother, and he concurred that she was overreacting slightly, but provided her viewpoint. He mentioned that there has been some tension between my family and her for a while now, and it seems the core issue is that no one has attempted to resolve it. My brother suggested that the three of us meet at a cafe, and then he would arrange a family dinner to discuss everything, allowing me to publicly apologize to Sarah. I also contacted my friends to ensure they were not hurt by the color situation. I didn't intend to be insensitive, and that was never my aim, but I want to ensure everyone feels comfortable. Additionally, to clarify, as many people have pointed out, this party was a single event. Last year's theme was nautical, and this year we opted for colors because I thought it would be fun. A better approach may have been to assign colors randomly or allow people to select between white or black. Sarah called me to discuss things and expressed her excitement for the photo shoot. The only condition she stated is that she does not want me or Anna to participate. Anna is aware of this but was not planning to attend to spare Sarah's feelings, although I feel it is strange for Sarah to make such a request. While I am willing to accommodate this for the sake of my family, I do not want to simply be submissive because this seems excessive. My brother was upset that she would make such a demand, but I hope to resolve everything at the cafe tomorrow.